excited.
Yes,
So
we
this,
are.
y'all here to talk about diversity at 11 a.m. We're here for it. We love this. We love this. So we're going to start off today. Really, the whole theme of Durag Fest this year is about authenticity, showing up as your fullest self. And so what better way to really drive that home than making sure we have safe spaces to exist within? So that's what we're going to talk about today. This panel specifically is diversity, equity, and inclusion beyond buzzwords. So really thinking about how we can show up in these spaces without just using the things that people have said to make us feel safe, but how do we actually create spaces that are inclusive and full of life? So with that, we're going to jump into introductions. I'm going to have the panel introduce themselves, and then we'll jump in. So we'll start with Jess.
Hello, everyone. First, I just want to say thank y'all for being the early birds, showing up for the first panel of the day. Shout out to y'all. And also shout out to the Durag Fest for putting this on together. Like, it's going to be a great weekend. But like you mentioned, my name is Jess Macon. I am the Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Senior Manager for UPS. And I am based in Atlanta, Georgia. So I came up here for the weekend to join you all today to talk about DEI beyond buzzwords, which I'm really passionate about, and just really happy to still be in this space and share with some like-minded people. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it to Liz.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So great to see these beautiful faces in the audience. My name is Liz Holmes-Baxter. I run our DEI programs at Credit Karma, which is a fintech organization based in Oakland, but we have an office here in Charlotte. And so, yeah, I've been in the DEI space for quite some time, so leading anything from employee resource groups to our internal and external programs, so partnership with like Render ATL, which was a conference that we had last week, Afrotech, and so on and so forth. So very excited to be here today and talk about DEI beyond buzzwords. It's a passion of mine to have these conversations and like making sure that we're thinking about safe spaces and what that looks like. And so thank y'all for having me, and I'll pass it to you, Kyle.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thank y'all for being here so bright and early and kicking off Durag Fest with us. My name is Kyle Brown. I'm an incoming people consultant for Cisco Systems. I have a background in diversity, talent acquisition, and program management, and specifically working with women's serving institutions, Hispanic serving institutions, and historically black colleges, but also how we create safe spaces for them in different environments. I'm extremely passionate about this specific subject, not because it is a division in some of our different workplaces, but I think it's something that really moves our culture forward and how we are advocates for ourselves. So excited to be able to talk about it. Yeah.
Thank y'all. Excited to have everybody. I did all that and push introductions and realized I didn't tell y'all who I am. I apologize. Hey, we're going to be kicking it for a little bit together today. My name is Catherine Cawley. Honored, blessed, grateful to be here. I've worked in corporate D&I spaces for the last 6 years, and so super excited to facilitate conversation today about that. So with that, since it is DEI Beyond Buzzwords, we will jump in by talking what even are some of the buzzwords in this space, right? Everybody could have a different perception of that. And so we're going to do a little quick rapid fire, 1 to 2 buzzwords per panelist, talking through something you hear a lot in this space and then what that means for the audience. We'll start with Jess.
All right, starting with me. So the word that I chose for this one is being an ally. I feel like that's used a lot in this space. And sometimes people don't really know exactly what it means to be an ally. It's more than just, a post on Instagram showing your support, doing this, but it's really actively and consistently showing support for marginalized communities. So like I said, going back to just, you see people when something happens, they're blasting all over social media but how are you actually showing up as an ally for these different groups in different settings, whether it be home, school, your corporate office, or your entrepreneurship activities, but how are you really showing up as an ally? So that's the word that I chose.
Yeah, and I think the word that came to me this morning as I was driving in, I was thinking about psychological safety. That word is used quite a bit when we talk about DEI or spaces specifically in the corporate workspace, if you will, or work environment, and what that looks like. And I don't know if people understand what true psychological safety is. And so like thinking about like, are we creating the spaces for folks to actually show up to be themselves authentically? Authenticity is another word that is used very often in the DEI space, right? Like how are people showing up as themselves? But I do think that those two words go hand in hand, and making sure that we have those spaces where folks can be themselves, especially when they come to work, because like we spend so much time at work with so many different people from different backgrounds, and how does that look when we have managers who don't look like us managing us, right? So are they creating the spaces that are psychologically safe for us to be able to thrive in those environments? I think that those are some things that we need to be actively thinking about. And if we're not creating policies and procedures or processes to ensure that our managers are equipped to manage teams that are diverse, then we need to actively be doing those in those spaces. So that was
That's
something
good.
for me.
What about you, Kyle?
For me, my word is a bit of a hot take, but my word is incompetence. What I've been seeing a lot lately in the media and in the news is that DEI is associated with incompetence. I've seen when the bridge collapsed in Baltimore, they say it was due to the DEI mayor. Or I seen a school system have an issue one time, and they said, oh, because the mayor was black. They said it was that DEI superintendent. So I associated what media and what people who are against DEI, they're associating DEI with incompetence. That when a minority is hired in any different field, that they are making that hire to be able to just, hit a quota rather than hiring them for their competency. So that's the buzzword I've been seeing over the last 6 months related to DEI that I didn't see probably 2 years ago.
And throwing DEI in front of anything you think wasn't done well is very much giving gaslighting. Like, that's insane. Thank y'all. That's really good to just talk about some of the things we hear in this space. We'll transition next, and I'm going to start with Liz on this one. What have been some of the roadblocks to forward movement and meaningful change as it relates to DEI? So some of the things that are kind of standing in our way to keep going where we're headed.
How much time do we have? No, that's a really good question. I think that there are so many misconceptions when we think about DEI. Education is probably like the biggest piece, and so we just raffled off some buzzwords, I think, when we think about DEI. But like people have heard these things, people have heard DEI, people have heard affirmative action, but there's like really no substance to understand like what that means. Like what is the work that we're really trying to accomplish, and why does that matter? And I think that those conversations need to be had more often, even within our own community, so that way we can speak more competently to it when people challenge us, as to say like, oh, I don't think DEI is really worth anything. I mean, this is just, a pass. People hiring people who are incompetent, who really can't do anything. They got hired for affirmative action when that isn't the case, right? I think systemically, we need to think about how our people have consistently been held back from specific opportunities, and DEI was implemented to proactively work against those things, right? If we're talking about trying to close the wealth gap, the equality gap, all of these things across the board, then we need to have systems, processes, and procedures in place to actively work against the institutionalized systemic racism that holds us back as a people. So I think for me, when I think about this question, education really stands out, because we need to all be equipped to be able to talk about DEI in whatever spaces we inhabit, whether it's in the corporate setting or even if it's here at Durag Fest or if it's at home with my family, and being able to challenge specific ideologies that were intentionally meant to hold Black people back from opportunity.
No, 100%. That's good. And it's so true, like the way in which people use these words as buzzwords to make it feel like there's change happening. And it's like, well, it's actually a little deeper than that. I love that. I'll jump to Kyle with this one. It's really hitting really well off what Liz said. Where does DEI exist outside of corporate America, right? It's easy to think, oh yeah, we do diversity and inclusion as an initiative at my job. But it's like, okay, what else? Where else is this?
Yeah, wonderful question. Immediately, healthcare. I think DEI immediately exists in healthcare. The people that you have caring for, your mother, your father, the people that you love, I think DEI immediately exists there. I think DEI exists directly with our nonprofits. I think nonprofits play a huge role in representing communities. And so if you go to any specific background or demographic culture, they'll probably have a nonprofit that represents their rights, their background, their cultural affiliation. And I also, as you mentioned, education is a huge place that it exists. So pretty much in every space or arena that you're in, it'll most likely exist. But I think mainly in the places that I'm mainly like playing a role, I think the nonprofit space is why I really pay attention to the diversity of programs that are targeted at specific communities and supporting them and advocating for them.
Yeah, that's so good, so good. I love the idea of adding healthcare in that because of the disparities that we see. And honestly, health is something that impacts everybody. So something we'll all come into contact with. Do y'all want to add anything to that? So where else do we see DEI in the world outside of work?
Everywhere, everywhere. It's the honest truth. It's in every facet of your life. If you think about the governmental policies that have been created, that's because, you know, there were specific people who didn't want certain people to have certain privileges and certain things, right? And that's DEI related. And so, like, even us being here in this specific space right now, having this specific conference or festival, like, that's all DEI related, right? So I think we have to think bigger beyond corporatizing what DEI is because it exists in every facet of life that we have.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And you really headed us this way as well, talking about the way that policy is shaped by diversity, equity, and inclusion. And anyone on the panel can feel free to take this, but with the upcoming election and potential threats to DEI initiatives and the way that we move in this space, what does life look like as DEI continues to really have a target on its back in different ways? Like, what does it look like to continue this work?
I'll take this one. Can y'all hear me? Okay, there we go. I think it's even more important for people to show up even to things like these. You mentioned education. I think now more than ever is time to get educated on DEI and what it means to be proactive and supporting the different initiatives and things that are going on within your communities, your schools, or whatever. Getting involved with the youth, I think, is really, really important now more than ever because you're talking about what's going on in the school systems. Like, they're not learning about any of this stuff now. I have 3 kids of my own. One's 8. He's just kind of stepping into the world as we know it. And so, like, the youth and just what they're exposed to and what they, you know, just are educated about in general it needs our support now more than ever. So having these conversations, showing up to these schools and you know, sharing what we do, what the importance behind these programs and why it's important to have these conversations, I think is important now more than ever, especially with the youth. And even events like these, going to the webinars, going to the conferences, going to the sessions where they're having these conversations and creating these spaces to learn more and get educated, ask questions. If you don't know something, it's okay to ask. Get educated. That's kind of the biggest thing because we don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now or down the road. They could cancel every DEI program, but at the end of the day, we can still do the work. We can still get out there and show up for the things that matter and the things that we're passionate about. And again, exposing that to the youth because they're the next generation. They're the ones coming up behind us. They're the ones that are going to be leading these organizations and programs. So instilling in them now the importance behind this work, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we've continued to progress. Like, I think life looks so different than when I was coming up. And something I hear a lot in DEI space is like, oh, I want to make a better world for my daughter. I want to make a better world for the people who come after us. And I'm like, I got a little problem with that because I actually want to make a better world for the world I actually live in today because, like, I'm already here and I already want access to equality, essentially. So that's really good. With that, how do y'all feel like we can have, community forward and community focused, like centric efforts to positively enhance DEI? To give a little context, I think a lot of times in this space, people expect the people who are from historically excluded backgrounds to lead the work. And so it's like, okay, so I have to tell you how bad you hurt me and then also tell you exactly how to fix it. And sometimes that can be problematic. And so when we think about really incorporating community into the way in which we approach this work, what might that look like?
You mind if I take it?
I would love if you take it, Kyle. Let's hear it.
You know, when someone put the mic up to their
Yeah.
mouth, you're like, oh, they want to speak.
He said, I got something to say. Let's hear it.
So I'm kind of like an old head by nature and by heart. I always believe, like, you know, really don't forget what got you here. And so when we think about community and we think about diversity, back to the nonprofit stuff, I'm a true believer in, like, supporting the nonprofits and the groups that help get us here, like the NAACP, the Urban League. I'm a supporter of them. The number of civil liberty unions out there that support different groups. I think a lot of these groups have really helped us get to where we are. So I'm always a person that's like, find that nonprofit or that group that you think you can align yourself with and join that community, because that's how you can like directly be involved in that community and target an issue. NAACP may be more civil focused, Urban League may be more socio-economic focused, your civil liberty unions may be more legal focused, but at the same time, find out what your community is and figure out where you can kind of plug in and be an advocate in that community. So I think finding where those groups are and playing your role is enough within that diversity space where you can make an impact within your community.
That's good. What does it look like for people to step into those spaces without coming and snatching the microphone from people who are already doing the work? I think a lot of times people think, oh, I need to integrate myself into this HBCU, for instance, or into this space so that I can make policies that help these people. Meanwhile, having never spoken to any of those people that you're trying to make policies to help. So what does it look like for people to really integrate spaces of communities they're not a part of and like hear from them as opposed to coming and trying to speak over them like, I know what's good for you. Oh, Liz said I got something to say. Come on.
It's the delicate tango. I have to say, like, I think that there is a level of ownership that people who are not historically excluded have to take up, right? But I do think that there is validity, of course, and absolute necessity to make sure you're talking to the communities that you're looking to provide whatever the program is or whatever that looks like for them. So I think it's a matter of like, hey, you need to do your research, to do your homework, understand the community you're serving, right? Go meet those people, have those conversations, come to the table with a solution, and then get the feedback from the community about what your solution provides and then how you can iterate and make it better for the community. I think it's a collaborative, collective effort.
I'll add too, don't be afraid to shake the table too a little bit. Like don't get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So there may be a situation where you're like, I could provide a lot of value in this space, but it may not look like the space that I kind of belong to or that I feel like, so you're a little hesitant. Like, don't be afraid to power through and shake the table up a little bit, because at the end of the day, some people might appreciate, you might ruffle some feathers, but some people might appreciate your perspective and you coming in, because not everybody knows everything. And sometimes if you have the perspective and the lifestyle that supports what you're trying to bring to the table, you can do a lot of different things in a lot of different spaces. So getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in the room and being okay with being the only one sometimes, that's going to happen a lot, especially in this space. So, but being confident in yourself and the value that you can provide will help you step into that door and, kind of get past that fear of, okay, this might not be appreciated, this might not be welcome, but I know I bring value. I know that what I have to say is important, and what will happen, what's meant to happen will happen.
Yeah. No, for sure. Hearing you say that makes me think about people entering these spaces and having to enter into the fear and the vulnerability. Because that's a big part. I think a lot of times people want to make meaningful change in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but they're too afraid to say the wrong thing. So if I'm scared to say the wrong thing, I'm going to say nothing in hopes that I don't mess up. And I think that's true in so many areas of life. How do you encourage people to mitigate that? Maybe not even mitigate, but to step into that fear anyways?
Mess up. It's okay. I think that to your point, there is a level of, you have to be okay and comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're going to mess up. I think that as the language evolves, as what DEI looks like evolves, it's not going to be this perfect process or this perfect thing that's this is what DEI is and this is going to fit this criteria specifically. Things change over time. There were words we were using 2 years ago that are no longer acceptable to be using now. So how are we making sure that we're adaptable? We just have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And you may not have all the right answers, and that's okay. I think that, with those missteps, you're able to go back and do the education piece that's required to be able to speak more eloquently to whatever that topic may look like in the future.
Yeah, that's good. I think DEI exists for the purpose of safety, right? We want to help people feel safe enough to be themselves in whatever room they walk into. I want to hear from the team about, in which spaces do you find yourself feeling most safe, whether that be in corporate or in life? And then beyond that, how do we continue to create and maintain safe spaces for us and people who look and feel like us as they continue to navigate the world?
I'll start. I think the places where I feel the most safe are the places where I can be my authentic self. We talked about authenticity, but I think it's really important, especially, like I mentioned, I work for such a large corporation as UPS. It's a 100+ year company. They obviously have, a lot of values and things that they've instilled over the years, but I have stayed with this company for the past 7 years right out of college because I've been able to show up as my authentic self, and they've created a space for me. Not everybody has it, but my specific teams and the people that the groups that I've been a part of have really opened up and created the space where I can show up as me, full Jess, whether you like it or not. I can speak my mind, I can mess up, and it's not held against me, but it's a learning opportunity. So areas where I'm supported, and it's not just, you have to do this, you have to do that. And even just in my everyday life, surrounding myself with the right people. My friend groups who I don't have a lot of yes people around me that just constantly tell me yes all the time. They tell me like it is. They say, hey, I don't know if you should have done that way. And I feel like that's really important, to surround yourself with the right people, because in all these areas, work, life, everything, you want to be true to who you are. You don't want to have to hide behind anything, because then you don't feel safe or comfortable. Like, you want to be able to be yourself and show up as your true self. And whoever likes it, loves it. Whoever doesn't, then you move on to the next. But I think in every area, that's the most safest that I feel, is when I can be true to myself.
I love that. Area. And I love how you said, you emphasize like areas I feel supported. Like, am I supported here to be me? Because I think it's not just the confidence to show up as yourself. It's also, when I show up as myself, what's that look like? What is the consequence, good or bad, for doing such a thing, right? Am I celebrated when I show up fully? That's good. What about you, Kyle? I want to hear from you about spaces you feel safest in and how we continue to create that.
I think, once again, the basic spaces. I feel safe in church, around people that have same views as me. I feel safe around my family. I feel safe. I love the support thing. I feel safe around people that I know I can lose around. Places where
Say that again. Slow that down. That was good.
Yeah, I need people that ain't gonna beat me down when I take a L. So yeah, places that I can lose and take a L and know that I can come to them and be able to pull me back up or be a motivation to me. I always think when you say safe space, I know it's been a big topic over the past 2 years. When I first got out of school, at lunchtime, all the black kids, well, we were grown, all the black people that worked there used to sit together, and then someone used to come to us and be like, yo, y'all should split it up sometimes and sit with other people across the room. I'm like, why should I do that? Because this is the space that I'm the safest in for lunch, or the space that I'm the safest in across different parts of my life. So I always think about, that moment when I think about safe spaces. I can go sit in any room in any category with any different group of people, but in general, those safe spaces are just around people that I feel the most comfortable with, that I can let my hair down a little bit. So not a genius answer, but what we would.
No, that's good.
Typically.
Why should I step outside of my own safety and comfortability to create the appearance of diversity and inclusion for you all, because you feel better knowing that I was good to go over there? But did I truly feel good and welcomed and wanted beyond welcome? Did I feel wanted? Yeah.
I always say, you come sit with us.
Right. Instead of telling you why you didn't go sit somewhere else, why didn't you say, hey, we would really love to have you?
Come sit with us. Right.
Right. Yeah. That's good. We're wrapping up a little bit. I've heard a lot of good things so far, but I think this room and this space and this festival was really made for creatives, Black creatives specifically, people who have dreams in their hearts to start businesses and different ventures like that. If someone is starting a business and they don't necessarily have all the capacity and resources to have a full-on DEI department right away, what does it look like to intentionally weave inclusion into your business structure as you're figuring out what it looks like to really thrive?
I'd say, I'm gonna be quick. Before you get to inclusion and DEI, I think if you're starting a business, just try to create some strong values and standards for how you want to do business. I think that'll be what you'll instill into your employees and your staff, of just strong core values and beliefs. And then from there, as you're building that community and building that team, start reflecting on what DEI-based initiatives you can insert into this community that you built. So I would say that.
Yeah, that's good. And creating values that actually mean something to you, right? Not creating a value because I think I'm supposed to care about integrity or because I'm supposed to care. Like, what value can I then filter everything I do in my business through?
Yeah.
That's good. What else?
Yeah, I love that answer. And I think to add to that, I think just actively always thinking about like whose voices are not at the table.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier just like having a strong friend group that aren't yes people, right? So like whose perspectives are you listening to? Whose insights are you gaining? Like what does that look like? Is it the same folks that look like you? Or are we bringing other folks with different perspectives and ideas to the table? So that's something I try to like live by as I'm actively thinking about like whether it's, you know, our leadership programs or women's programs, like whose voices at the table aren't being heard and how can we go about making sure they're amplified? Are like some key things as I think about inclusion in specific businesses and getting those up to, you know.
That's good. What I'm hearing is like, is your own circle inclusive? Is your own circle like have diversity from some, I mean, Black people are diverse inherently, but also there's so many layers and levels to that. So like, did we all go to the same high school and we all grew up in the same neighborhood? We know the same people, we do the same things. Like, friends having different hobbies is elevating us, right? And showing us a way that we can live. And so like combining the not having yes people and not having people who only know how to say yes to you, being able to fail in front of your friends and your community and still be supported and loved and uplifted. And then making sure that I actually have people who have different experiences than me will ultimately make my business better, period, because I'm becoming a more well-rounded person. Jess, what
I'll
about
add
you?
something really quick because I love what both of you all said when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting a business. I think having the values is really important. And one thing I will also say is don't be afraid to even use like focus groups, like bringing in different perspectives. If you have an idea that you're like, oh, this is a great idea, like, because you may think it's a great and wonderful idea, but it might not be the best idea once you get some other people's perspectives and things in. So using your network and just making sure that your business is reflecting the people that you want to serve. So you went back to like your circle, who you have on the team, whose seat is at the table. It's nothing to have different perspectives at the table. You don't want to be surrounded with everyone who thinks the same, everyone who has the same ideas. You want to have somebody that challenges you in your business and says, hey, that's a great idea, but maybe we should do it this way because this certain group might not take it that way if you present it this way. That's a great perspective that you didn't think of. So there's all ways to incorporate DEI into every aspect of your journey or whatever that may be, career. So I think even utilizing focus groups is a huge thing that a lot of people have started doing but don't do it enough of when they're bringing ideas and products and things like that to their community. Like getting some other buy-in is needed.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank y'all for your willingness to be vulnerable and to be open and to be here in this new experience and for sharing your years of expertise from living through life and also the work that you've done. We really appreciate y'all for everything you've done, Jess, Liz, and Kyle. So thank y'all for being here at 11 o'clock in the morning to hear about diversity beyond buzzwords. We really appreciate y'all, and we're excited for the remainder of the day.
Thanks so much.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, y'all.